Hi everyone. This week I'm sick, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds strange or my, speech is a little impaired here. But this week we are discussing social and emotional intelligence regarding self-leadership and leading others. So emotional intelligence is generally what assists us in navigating our reactions and responses in certain situations. So in our reading this week in Emotional Intelligence 2.0, there is a chart that depicts where our emotional processes take place versus our understanding of them. And those two activities take place in different parts of the brain. So it just kind of shows, like, this is way over here compared to where this starts. So in order to work on our emotional intelligence, we need to create habits that form pathways of brain cells between those two areas to strengthen the relationship between them. And that being said, if you aren't very strong in emotional intelligence, it's going to affect your self leadership skills. If you aren't aware of how your emotions affect your decisions, that has a high potential to create waves at home, at work, in social settings, etc. Um, Also, mentioned in Emotional Intelligence 2.0, work is where we experience the most stressful situations with people. We encounter stressful people in general, but also like strained relationships or strained conversations with people mostly at work. So not having a strong level of emotional intelligence poses the risk of speaking hastily with what you're thinking or feeling. We run the risk of shutting other people down or making them feel like we're shutting them down, and we don't really mean to, or maybe you do, and you just maybe you need to hold your tongue, which also escalates conflict, or makes you seem that you are sort of unstable at times. So this it doesn't really look good, especially when you're trying to lead others. When you act and or react hastily based on your emotion, it kind of makes people view you as hot-headed or too sensitive, which will lead to a lack of trust from others, resulting in you being viewed as unapproachable. And that's the farthest thing from our goals as leaders. Fertner et al. Mentioned that self regulation is correlated to self leadership and is also related to emotional intelligence via social sensitivity and emotional expressivity. So those are two areas um, that directly affect our social intelligence and emotional intelligence. Therefore, being mindful and self-aware of our emotions, taking time to think about what we're feeling and why we're feeling it before we before we act or say anything, um, it will strengthen our self-regulation skills, thus increasing our emotional intelligence. I guess at the end of the day, if you just take the time to really process what you're feeling and why, then you can have an action plan of how you're going to handle it. And that's the self-regulation part. Um, so Goleman's article supports this by stating that emotional intelligence is linked to higher performance. So people with higher emotional intelligence tend to perform better, especially in leadership roles for those given reasons, because they're better at reading situations and being more sensitive to people when they're listening to them, when they're speaking to them, and really forming their words very carefully instead of just kind of flying off the handle. So, conclusively, emotional intelligence is important to work on for our own self leadership through self regulation so we can be more effective leaders of others by being able to understand and form our responses to others in constructive ways instead of destructive ways.